Here on my YouTube channel, I think we're long overdue for a conversation on a show that defined my gay upbringing. There was one television show, well, okay, there was Buffy as well, but there was one specifically queer show that defined what made me a young queer adult. It shaped a lot of my ideas of this community, for better and for worse. Yes, we're talking about Queer as Folk today, a show that ran on Showtime in the 2000s, but was also a show in the UK that was a huge moment as well. I'm going to be specifically talking about the US version of the show because that's what I'm familiar with, and that's what I just rewatched. Oh boy, did I find out on my recent rewatch that the show is incredibly dated. There are some things that were massively wrong with the show that even in 2000 I think could have been done a lot better. But in today's episode, we're going to be talking about why I think Queer as Folk is perfectly imperfect. If you wanted a time capsule of what it was like to be a gay man in the 2000s, this is it. Notice there I said gay men because this show isn't as queer as the title would make you think. Nowadays, we think of the word queer as an all-encompassing term for the LGBTQ plus community. There is so much in there that we just call them the queer community now. But in the 2000s, it wasn't really like that, and this was kind of them reclaiming the word. But yeah, when you look back on these first couple seasons, hell, when you look back on the whole show, this is like a story mostly like depicting white gay men. Like, it's kind of there, and it's an issue I have, but it's also a part of what the 2000s gay culture was like. It was pretty whitewashed. You even look at a show like Will and Grace at that time, and there isn't a lot of like huge black characters that were anything of note on that show. So this was a problem in the gay community at the time. It's still a problem in the gay community, but let's just try to focus it on in this series. So yes, for this video, I'm going to be shaping this into 3 main chapters. We have the good, the bad, and the legacy. We thought I was going to say the ugly there, but there is nothing ugly on the show, minus some of the small-minded views from the gay community. But truly, we're going to be talking about the legacy of this to wrap it up, because I think this has had a huge impact on queer pop culture. But before that, let's talk about the good, and let's talk about the bad. Growing up in the 2000s, I never really remembered seeing gay characters on television. So to start off my good section, I have to mention how important this was for a lot of gay kids at this time. This was something I would go over to my aunt's house, who was super liberal, super open-minded, and we would get together, and like me and my cousins, and watch the show. Yes, we were probably way too young to see some of the sex scenes, and now that I look back on them, they're either sometimes so boring or kind of scandalous. But yeah, this was something that I was just like so excited to watch, and we would get together and just be like, oh my god, we were sucked into the emotional drama just as much as we were the scandalous moments as well. So I really do think this played a major part. If you ask a lot of gay kids around my age, this was something we all remember. This was something a lot of kids snuck in their like basements to go watch, and were trying to hide it from their parents. It makes me giddy to think about what this was. But also at this time in the gay community, there wasn't a lot for the older people. This was something fun for me as a younger kid, but for the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, and the plus, this was something that they were like, holy smokes, you captured the post-80s AIDS epidemic life of the gay community there. It was, HIV/AIDS is a conversation point, but it's not just about how sad that disease is. We were making progress in this show, which is crazy to think the progress that we've made now. But yes, this show was really depicting a lot of stuff at this time, very candidly, very real, and I will say, I do like the mostly positive representation. We'll talk about something in the next, chapter here, where I'm like, okay, we did like to wallow in some misery, but for the most part, this was a celebration of this time period, of what it was like to be gay in 2000.
Go to her, Justin. Teach her what it is to be a real woman.
Like somebody taught you.
besides what it meant for a lot of people, if you just watch this show, it's really entertaining. Like, there is so much to enjoy. The acting is very, very good. The stories are very compelling. Sometimes they were way too melodramatic for me, and I thought I was watching a damn soap opera, but I was watching a soap opera in a lot of ways. So yes, I just think this show is a blasty blast to watch. I think that first season just breezes by, but it really finds itself in season 2 and season 3. I just enjoy so much of this. It's just these characters I enjoy. I love our main crew. I think, like I said, Michael is such a cool character. Brian and Justin, that saga. I even liked Melanie and Lindsay. Even though the show seems to not like these characters as much as some people should, I think they were really entertaining. I think their story, we will talk about in the negative, isn't the best for representation, but there's still something there and very compelling, and I believe them through the whole way through the series. The goods, the bads, I was there, and that's that for all the characters. You also had fantastic acting. Let's start off by saying Sharon Gless, like, I will have to say, she was amazing. She was the life of this show. She held it together as Debbie. Like, I just think she was so endearing. She was the pride flag mom that I wanted, and I have an awesome, loving, supporting mother, but like, this was the mom that I was just like, oh my god, she makes all of y'all look like nothing. Like, what are y'all doing? You're not doing what Debbie's doing. Like,
don't be so hard on yourself.
I wouldn't mention hard on.
Who could get a stiffy in a sterile environment like that anyway?
Just a character I enjoyed, and her brother, Vic, was just a character I never got to see that era of gay men depicted. Someone from, who lived through the worst time to be a gay man to this time where it was a little bit more free, it was a little bit more lighter. It's interesting to see. He really played against these characters really well. I loved Justin. As a younger kid, I kind of related to him wanting to be with the older men. Now I look back on him and be like, there were so many red flags, honey, you should have left. I'm so enamored by his character, his journey, especially from the gay bashing, which is such an infamous thing, to what he dealt with dealing with Brian. Oh my god, I don't know how he would have done it, but I've dated so many Brians in my life as well, so I really get into this, like, show, the characters. It's a fun watch. I highly recommend it to anyone. If you've never seen it and just decided to click on this video because you wanted to see someone talk about it, or you just follow my channel, this is something you should watch. It's on Showtime. I don't know how you can find it. It's also the internet. You can find it somewhere, but definitely see this because they are doing a remake coming up on Peacock. It's definitely something that's going to be talked about, and I say it's a fun watch and such a nostalgic throwback that needs to be seen. So it wasn't always rainbows and sunshine on Queer as Folk. There was times in this series that I thought it loved to wallow in its misery. When I look at the bad of Queer as Folk, it's some of those really depressing seasons. It's like seasons. Like, there are some times where I'm like, wow, season 2 is just dark. Oh my god, like, Ted is in another toxic relationship with the, oh my god, Emmett is with the straight man character. There's just a lot in here that I'm like, wow, this show just, it's like torture porn at times. Like, not in the way you think of Hostel, but in the, isn't it fun to see all these sad people be sad? I know this isn't going to be, like, happy all the time. Real life is not like that. But this show, when it got dark, it liked to live in the dark. It just wanted to stay there, and I'm not for that 100%. I wanted to be uplifted, and sometimes the show just got way too depressing. I can truly go back to some of the, I'm not talking about like the, Justin gay bashing stuff, or when Michael breaks up with his first boyfriend. I was just like, no, not that stuff. It's like the addiction stuff, what they did to Melanie and Lindsay's characters. It's just stuff like that I'm like, why am I watching this still? Because I'm just getting annoyed and angry. It definitely cleans up by the end. I don't really love the final season, and of course there's like a bombing, because that's exactly what this show needs. Yeah, that's definitely what I'm saying. Like, it's hard to watch because I just recommended it in the last section, but that should come with an asterisk that this isn't always the lightest of viewings. You can't just really throw on some episodes of Queer as Folk just to watch when you want to get into a mood. No, you're going to be some episodes like, this is the most depressing 45 minutes of my life.
I swore to myself this wasn't going to wind up an old Lana Turner movie, but it looks like that's the direction it's headed. So I'm going to make Lana proud.
And it will be. It's hard. It's not, like I said, not the best, easiest watch, but I definitely think there is more goods in the storytelling than there is bads, but some of those bads, like I said, what they did with Melanie and Lindsay, what they did with Ted and Emmett, some of the Brian and Justin relationship gets a little eye-rolly, but that's fine. I don't really love storylines anyway. Something else that would make it better would be some characters of color, would be some trans folk, would be more lesbians, would be different type of gay men. This show definitely, it did have some variations in how it depicted gay men. There was some more of the mask for mask kind, there was some of the party boys, there was some femme queens, there was just some nerds, so there was some representation there, but it just wasn't enough. I don't think there is everyone represented here, and when a show is called Queer as Folk, it should be queer as fuck. Like, what are we doing here, guys? Like, the fact that there was never a major drag queen character as like a consistent character on this show, something that was prevalent in the gay community at that time. There was drag performers featured here and there, but not like a prevalent cast member. But we had room for like methed out tweaker over here. Yeah, we have time for that, but we don't have time for a trans woman. We don't have time for a trans man. Now that would come later on in the L Word, which would have its own bag of issues when it talked about like trans folk as well. But yeah, this show just definitely kind of lets me down in the representation department. Now, I will say this show was filmed in Canada, and it was started to film in the year 2000. So, okay, maybe not the best time and the best place for this massive representation pool, but it's very obvious when there is not a major black character. Where is the black folk, people? Where is just like a strong black man to be in this group? Now, you can watch something like Noah's Ark for a great look at representation in the black community, in the black queer community. I love that. I think that is such a good show for that. I just wish that was prevalent in this show. I just wish it wasn't so whitewashed at times. Not saying that it's completely bad, and I don't blame it because time and place, and I understand that fully, but I just cannot, like, ignore the fact that this show has a coloring to it that I don't think the whole rainbow is represented in this show, and that definitely kind of hurts me on a viewing like this, where I'm just like, I had fun watching it, but I'm just like, yo, for real, where is the black characters? Maybe I missed it on this rewatch. Let me know if I missed a trans character, a major one, or something other than that. Like, we had another lesbian character when Rosie O'Donnell came, but still, I just wanted a little bit more in the representation department. Now finally, the legacy of Queer as Folk. We would not have as much LGBTQ content on television if it wasn't for this. After this, we had Noah's Ark, The L Word, and even RuPaul's Drag Race as examples of prime queer content, and they were all birthed from Queer as Folk. Now, this is also birthed from the British show that, like, Russell T Davies started and definitely broke down barriers, and then when they brought it over to the States, it was even bigger. Now, this show isn't as popular as other shows. I actually think the L Word is probably a bigger show. It got a reboot way before this one did. So yes, I definitely think this was a defining moment, and I love that it opened the doors for shows to be even bigger. We would not have a show like RuPaul's Drag Race where we just see fun queer characters without this. We would not have a mainstream family show like Will and Grace that your grandma would watch if it wasn't for this kind of raunchy, kind of crazy, drug-fueled, fabulous, glitter-filled show. Yeah, I really do appreciate what Queer as Folk did for breaking down the barriers. This is such a big deal. I cannot stress that enough. The fact that I was able to, at like a teenager, a young adult kind of thing, get to see this show, get to see these characters represented on screen, it's wild. Like, it blows my mind still to this day that this show exists and we have it. It's wonderful to see. Again, it is not perfect, but also that is the legacy of the queer community as well. We cannot ignore how whitewashed things were at one point because we have moved forward in so many ways. Again, we have so much more progress to make. We need to get rid of the mask for mask gays, the no fats, no femmes, no Asian gays. We still have progress to make, but you look at Queer as Folk and go, wow, we have jumped a lot in these 21 years. Wow, 21 years, I just said that blew my mind. But yes, it's crazy to see, and that's what I think is important about the show as well, is saying we do not need to go back there. When they make this new Queer as Folk coming to Peacock, it better be diverse. And I don't want forced diversity. Just don't throw a black person in there because, oh god, I have to. Write characters that we care about. Like, tell these stories from different walks of lives. We need it. Bring people aboard. If you don't know how, or don't want to write a black character, bring someone in that will. If you don't want to write an Asian character, well, you suck. Bring in someone to do it then. This is what we need. We need this positive representation. So I hope the new Queer as Folk learns the lessons from this. Make it entertaining, make it fun like this show was, but also do better than this show. Because I like it. It just could be a little bit better, and that's what I want for the future for our community. That is it for my weird deep dive into Queer as Folk. This video was way more fun to make than I thought it would be. I love this show. It really does mean a lot to me. I bashed it in the little middle section to say, hey, the representation sucks, and sometimes it is way too melodramatic, but that's truly the only negatives I have, because I do look back on this show fondly, and I hope you do too. I hope you enjoyed this video as well. I had a blasty blast talking about this, so let me know what you think down in the comments below. Subscribe to my channel because I make videos like this for you guys. I love talking about this, and I felt inspired to bring up Queer as Folk, so I hope you all enjoyed. Give me a thumbs up if you did happen to enjoy it. Alright everyone, let's talk about Queer as Folk down below.